already done, that I've already carved through, is a mushroom. I love mushrooms. And you can kind of see, if you look closely, you can see those thinner lines on the inside of the mushroom, and then the more fat lines on the inside of the frame and on the outside. So those were done with different sized carving tools. So on here, this is my logo, and I have it on backwards on my little 2x3. So I'm gonna start out with a thinner wood carving tool. These are not my wood carving tools, I'm unfamiliar, but it's okay. So this one's pretty thin, so I'll start with this one right here. So I'm gonna take it, and these are really small, so just be careful. I got nicked a couple times with my wood carving tool. Oh, yes! These are the real deal right here. Now we're cooking with gas. So this right here, as you can see, it's super, super thin. And I want those thin lines on my B and around that circle there too. I want that all carved out. So, at least I think so. So I'm gonna start out, again, please be careful because you will accidentally, if you're going too hard at it and if your finger is right there, it'll right into your finger. And these are really, really, really sharp, so it will cut you. It won't feel like it because it'll be really tiny like a paper cut, but you will bleed.
I actually need to jump in because I tell you this ahead of time.
Yep.
I require all of you to wear a Band-Aid on your non-dominant hand just because it physically reminds you that it's there, and then if you do accidentally run into it, you've got a little padding on your finger. Think of it like a thimble, okay?
Yes.
So when you guys start today, grab a Band-Aid and put it on your non-dominant finger, the one you got there.
Yes. So I start out, I have my carving tool. I'm gonna start with right on the edge here. So it's kind of like a spoon. It's kind of like you're scooping ice cream. So you get a little bit of force in here, kind of have to wiggle it. Can everyone see? And you won't, sometimes you can get it all the way straight through and it's just, you're just chugging along, you make a nice smooth pathway. But other times, it's not as easy. So you just kind of have to keep going and strong. You see that little line that I made? So the inside is a little lighter than the outside, so you'll be able to see it all right. Whew. You might mess up, that's okay. It gives it some personality. Nothing's perfect. That makes it beautiful. And something you have to keep in mind when you're carving, you may not want to, I may not want to carve my B. I might want my B to be the thing that sticks out, that makes the ink. Because remember, when we're making this divot, that means that when I put ink on it, the things that are inside that little divot, it's like that little hole, the ink isn't gonna go inside there. So that means this line right here that I carved is gonna be white. And this part around it is gonna be black or pink or whatever your ink color is. So we had pictures of that beforehand, I don't know if you guys remember. So you just have to kind of think about it. It's kind of like positive and negative space. So you just have to think of where do I want the ink and where do I not want the ink. And so right here on my mushroom, I wanted no ink on the inside of this frame and on the outside, but I wanted ink around this frame and on this mushroom, but not on those little dots on the mushroom. So that's something to think about. All right, so I'm gonna try a larger one here. This one's a little bigger. And I'm gonna carve out the outside of my B because I want all of that gone. I just want the square that I have inside. So I kind of have a good starting end point with that thin line I made. Woo. These need sharpened.
Other tips in there too?
Yep, I might need
sharper one.
another.
Take that one out, gotta unscrew it.
Gotta unscrew it. It's good, we're learning all together.
So can you guys see that one finger, how you can easily stab that one finger that's right there? So again, keeping a Band-Aid on that is just a little bit of a extra protective, just enough to keep it from getting gouged tremendously.
It hurts. It's not fun. I'll tell you that right now. So it's just that fine movement, and it does make a mess. You'll get little flakies all over the place, and that's okay as long as you clean it up after. So just want to go right up against, and it's good to make sure that you have, and I'll be able to explain this more once I make my mushroom print. But what happens is when you get into a wide space like this with a lot of those carving things, when you print it, you may get something called chatter. And chatter is where some of those parts that I carved in here, some of those lines against each other, they might hit the surface a little more and they might get some ink on them, so you might see those little scrappies, scragglies onto your print. Some people like that. Sometimes it's very beautiful. So if you think that works with your logo, absolutely keep it. But if you're like, nope, it needs to be clean, no problem. You can either carve into it deeper, or a little trick we like to use is you take a piece of Scotch tape and tape it on the chattered areas, and that'll make it smooth so no ink will get on it, if that makes sense. All right, so are we ready to roll some ink?
Yes. You just want to do pink or black? She's got pink in her hand. Should we do the pink one?
I was about to say,
Pink.
it's boring.
Yeah, black's way too boring. All right, so I have my ink. What I'm going to do, because I need to spread the ink evenly, so I'm going to measure how big my roller is, and I'm going to squirt the ink just like that, about the size of my roller, because I don't need to go past that. So I'm going to set the ink down, and then take that. I'm going to do another line up here as well, just to make sure I'll get it even enough. So you take your roller and roll it out, get it nice even. I think I use a little much. You really don't need a lot of ink. I have a little too much, because you just want a really even layer. And eventually you want to hear like this Velcro sound. It's squeaking a little bit. It's just talking to me. That's cool. All right, so you want to just make sure that you have a nice even layer all around. I think this ink is a little watery, and that's okay. But you can kind of see that there's a good amount of even. It's a little uneven right here. So you just want an even layer all over your roller. So that looks a little better, right? We're all in agreement? All right. So now I take my block here and I roll the ink right on top of that. Look at that. Get enough on there so it can print. Does that look okay? Does that look even? So there's that. And it's kind of fun because you can almost see the image on your roller too. A little fun. All right, so now I have my paper, and you can do this either way. I usually like to put my paper down flat on the press and then put my image on top of it, but you can also put your image on there and put your paper on top of it. However you want, either way works, I think. So I'm gonna do it this way. I'm gonna put my paper down. Woo. I'm gonna set my image on top of it where I want it in this corner here. And then press. So just get that even amount there. Make sure, this is my first time using my little wood press Gutenberg, so we'll see how it turns out. All right, and now for the reveal. Can you guys give me a drum roll? Drum roll, okay. Terrible! Yeah! Okay, so that's okay. This is our first time, so I'm just gonna tighten this press a little bit.
You may want to throw some black ink on top of that too, because that ink did look a little wet.
It is a little
So
wet. I don't
it-
think the ink is sticking very well.
I'll get you a little stinky.
Stinking. It's not stinking very well. You need a good smelling ink. I'm just kidding, that doesn't matter. So we are going to try again with some black ink.
Just mix the red in, you don't mind.
Yes.
Two tone.
2 tones. So this is good. It's all experiments. in my head I was imagining it to be a little cooler and you're all go like, oh my word, she's so cool, but that's okay. Because just sometimes it happens. It's a good learning experience. Okay, so now I'm going to roll once more. Yeah, this is a little better.
Do you hear that?
Yep, you want to hear that like Velcro sound. Really. Use a little too much ink. If you use less ink than I use, you'll get that lovely Velcro sound. All right, here we go again.
Take two.
There we go. Take two. Hear that? Beautiful. All right, so we're gonna try again. And this time I'm gonna do it different. I'm going to set this down first and then set my paper on top of it. We'll see if that goes better. I'm gonna go a little more over here. Are you guys nervous?
No.
I'm a little nervous. See how this one goes.
Optimistic.
Yep. Can you even rub it a little bit? Because this is before the printing press was made. They kind of just rubbed it like with the back of wooden spoons or little stuff there. Okay. Are we ready? Drum roll now. Ah, waves! So you can kind of see it now. So my mushroom, I used a little too much ink, so that's why it's kind of a lot, because I just used too much ink. You really don't need a lot. That's kind of...
Can you do a second one real quick with the ink
Yeah.
on there, because you can see what this looks like.
So now we're gonna do what printmakers call a ghost print, where you still have leftover ink on your piece. So you can do another one. It won't be as intense as that last one, but it's great like me if you use a lot of ink just naturally. In mine, I have a little bit of a chatter. I don't really want it there, so I'll probably use some Scotch tape or carve into it a little more. Press that down. Rub it a little bit.
Ooh.
It's a ghost print. Ooh. Yeah. So that is the ghost print. So mine has a little bit of chatter over here because you can clearly see that some ink got on there. So if I don't want it there, which I don't, I'm going to take my wood carving tool and you can kind of just carve out those little chatter points and be careful not to ruin your image. And yeah, you can just get those off. You can carve them up or you can use Scotch tape, either way. And I know carving can be really scary because it's really permanent. You can't erase carved lines because they are in there forever. And I understand that, but you kind of just have to go in there and do it and accept it the way it is, and sometimes it's not gonna work. Like my first try that I was envisioning was going to be flawless and perfect. It wasn't, and that's okay. So you just have to kind of take a deep breath and just go in there, and if you make a mistake, that's fine. You'll work with it, and it'll be okay.